This year, Minecraft turned 15 years old. Plenty of versions have been released during this time, so I got the idea to make a retrospective of all the updates of Minecraft and start right from the beginning. And when I say from the beginning, I mean this one. Yeah, okay, I'm kidding. That's Minecraft 4K. We'll talk about that another time. We're going to start with the pre-classic development phase, and we're going to end with the aquatic update. I think it will be interesting not only for newbies, but also for old folks. Recalling the old good days. Subscribe, click on the bell, and let's get started. The development of the first version of Minecraft began long before Notch even got the idea to create it. As weird as that sounds. Back in 2008, Notch took part in a competition called Java 4K. It would seem, where in those years, the resolution of 4K, but in fact, the name came from the idea of the competition itself. The task of all participants was to write a game that was 4 kilobytes in size, that is 4096 bytes. Notch took part in these competitions from the beginning of 2005 to 2010, when he was actively developing Minecraft. So, in December 2008, he created Left 4K Dead, a zombie shooter game inspired by Left 4 Dead. It was as simple as possible, with the player walking down corridors and killing zombies. Later, he wanted to improve it and make a kind of sequel. It was to be the same shooter, but in the style of the game, Grand Theft Auto Chinatown Wars. The game was called Zombie Town. Then Notch started to create something in 3D format, but as it happens, he dropped the idea. It is remarkable that it was in this game for the first time appeared a human mob with a skin of Steve. No wonder he looks so much like Thomas Vercetti from GTA Vice City. The same shirt and the same pants. So we have Steve, which was created somewhere in February 2009. Unfortunately, there's no exact date, but in 2009, from February to May, Notch was also developing another game, Ruby Dung. There's not much information about this game because it was not released. Notch also left the development and just switched to Minecraft, but more on that later. All that is known is that it was supposed to be a sandbox game. To create it, Notch was inspired by Dwarf Fortress, a game that came out in 2006, which had elements of a building simulator and a roguelike. There's not much else to say about Ruby Dung, except only the name. Originally, it was supposed to be called Ruby Lands. In the end, it turned out to be Ruby Dung because of the too long title Dungeon Game in the Ruby Lands. But as it happens, the game's development didn't reach its final stage because of Infiniminer. Notch played it for the first time and realized that it was exactly the kind of game he wanted to make. It was originally intended to be a team-based game where players compete against each other to find and dig for treasure medals, bringing their finds to the surface to earn points for their team. But with each new update, players just love building something in it. So Notch too wanted to build something. So he decided to take the already written engine for Ruby Dung and put his idea into it. That's how he got pre-classic. This is an unofficial name for a kind of update branch. It was called so because all these versions were released before the official name, Classic. The first update was called Cave Game. It included 4 snapshots, only then they had a slightly different name. Currently, the snapshots have a similar name, 23W25A, where the first 2 numbers are the year of the snapshot release. W means week. Just after this letter, there are 2 numbers, which represent the number of the week. And after that, there's a letter indicating the specific version of the snapshot, which was released in this week. When the first pre-classic versions were released, the name was quite different. Now let's consider the first known, but unfortunately not released, version RD3648. Strange name, I agree, but it makes sense. RD is short for Ruby Dung, all because Notch used the engine that was written for this game. The first 2 numbers meant the day of release of this version, and the next 4 numbers meant the time when the development was completed. These were the names of the versions that were released in the pre-classic era. The first documented version of Minecraft was released 2 minutes after the previous one. And then Notch even recorded a video on his channel where he demonstrated the game. It was at that moment that the game got its first name, Cave Game Tech Test. Although, on his Tumblr blog, he called it differently, Cave Game Tech Demo. I don't think this is a problem. There were only 3 blocks available in this version. Air, of course, it's transparent. A solid block of grass, and stone, yes. At the time, it was a stone texture. The textures for these 2 blocks he took right from Ruby Dung. Then also, the player as a character appeared for the first time. But unfortunately, he had no model. The world generation was quite primitive. The whole map was 256 by 64 by 256 blocks. There were no barriers, and the player could easily fall outside the map. Chunks were 16 by 16 blocks. There was no survival mode back then. Instead, there was the most primitive creative mode. The player could not fly, break, or place blocks, only move around. Already the next version of Minecraft has become available for everyone. By the way, you can play it yourself. It is available in the launcher. But there is one but. This version is not exactly the same. it is recompiled from the source code. So technically, it is not the original. We can say, here we have the paradox of Theseus's ship. In this version, we can already destroy any blocks, even place, except for a very strange system. If you break blocks of grass and then place a block there, a block of grass will appear, the same with stone. On the surface, we still only have the ability to place stone. In this version, also appeared a block stroke when we look at it. Generation of the world has changed. Now it is a parallelepiped with a size of 256 by 256 by 42 blocks. The limitation on the height of construction was 64 blocks. We also got a quick revival option. To achieve this, you had to press the R key, and then the player was instantly teleported to a random location on the map. The next version, the last in the collection, Cave Game. It is also available to everyone in the launcher, but exactly as with the previous version, it is also recompiled. In this version, for the first time were added mobs. Unfortunately, to say who it is, I can't. In general, they are mobs with Steve's skin without written AI, which aimlessly ran and waved their hands in different directions. The funny thing is that they were signed as zombies in the game files. Of course, they couldn't attack the player. There was no survival mode back then. Most likely, they were named so because they were supposed to be zombies in the unfinished game Zombie Town. By the way, when entering the game, they also appear with the player. There are 100 of them in total. When leaving the game, they are also removed from the world. The icing on the cake of this version will be the oldest public world that has been saved so far. You might be surprised, but it belongs to Aelin Zetterstrand, Notch's ex-wife. She recently shared it herself. You can see it on your screen right now. To be honest, I was quite shocked by this news. Then, for just one version, the game got a new name, Minecraft Order of the Stone. If you've played story mode, you know that the same name was given to the legendary group of heroes who were able to slay the Ender Dragon. In this version, for the first time was added a block of dirt. It was generated under a block of grass. Remember when I said that that block of cobblestone is actually a stone? So right now, Notch decided to add a cobblestone. He took the texture of the stone, reworked it a bit, and assigned it to the stone. Accordingly, the stone needed its own texture, so Notch drew a new one, the one we know today. And then there were the planks. They had a wholly different texture, a darker texture. There were no trees yet. We just had the ability to select blocks by pressing 1 to 4 keys. 1 for stone, 2 for dirt, 3 for cobblestone, 4 for planks. There was no hotbar at that time, so the selected block was shown in the upper right corner. Remember that in the last version of the human mob was spawned together with the player in the amount of 100 units? Well, Notch decided that this was too much, and so he reduced this number to 10 units, but added the ability for the player to summon them using the G key. If they fell outside the world border, they were instantly removed from the world after overcoming the level y equals -100. Starting with this version, the player now has a crosshair in the form of a plus sign in the middle of the screen. But the problem was that it was neither transparent nor had that inversion effect, as it does now. In addition, Notch has reworked the grass. The texture became a bit brighter. But the main trick was that if a block of grass was in a closed room where the sun did not get, then over time it turned into a regular block of dirt. But if you put it back in the sun, grass appeared. Very cool detail. It's a pity that it was rejected, but I understand perfectly why they did it. They also reworked the physics of the player a bit. Now he jumps higher and moves faster. After this version, Notch decided to remove the prefix Order of the Stone and leave only Minecraft. It seems like a good decision to me. Everyone would call the game Minecraft anyway, and the extra words just get in the way. They kind of have to specify what the game is about, but Order of the Stone doesn't provide any information about the game. So in this version, also for the first time appeared animations of block breaking. Now, after the player destroys any of the 4 available blocks, they will see particles with the texture of the block they destroyed. Since then, the animation of destroying blocks has not changed that much. In the next version of Minecraft, not much has changed, except for the addition of a new block, the sapling. Don't think, they couldn't grow into a full-fledged tree. It's just a decorative block. But here's what is remarkable. If all previous blocks were called on the keys from 1 to 4, then the sapling on the number 6. Why not 5? All because Notch decided to hide the block for now because he didn't like the texture of the block. I'd have to agree with Notch. The texture is hideous. It's too faded, as if drawn in paint. But there's nothing wrong with that. Notch admitted that he didn't know how to create textures. It was always a challenge for him. After this version, the development phase of Minecraft Alpha began. Just like that, from pre-classic to alpha? Not really. Purely technically, it was the pre-classic development phase, but for some reason on the forum, Notch decided to post that Minecraft alpha was available, and he would need PC, Linux, and Mac OS players to test it. Obviously, this is not a full alpha, and all subsequent versions are unfortunately not available for regular players. Notch never released them to the public. There were 4 total of them released that were never made available. Nothing new was added to them. Only bugs that were discovered by other players were fixed. But just these versions, for the first time, received the prefix MC, that is Minecraft, instead of RD, Ruby don't. And that was the end of the pre-classic development phase. It took about 5 or 6 days in total. It's not clear exactly because Notch himself doesn't remember when it started, because the first version appeared on May 13th, and as he says, he started development 2 to 3 days before that. So in 6 days in the game appeared minimal physics, dirt, stone, grass block, planks, cobblestone, human mob, world generation, particles, saplings, the void, placement, and destroying blocks. Today's video also comes to an end. The retrospective didn't turn out to be very long, but I didn't want to stretch it out any longer. So if you want to know how was the development stage of Classic, then subscribe, leave a like, and also click on the bell. If you are waiting for a new video, check out these ones. They are also very interesting. We'll hear from you again.